when, where, how, and why. Now, AV fistula is actually an Achilles heel for hemodialysis because it is the most stable kind of vascular access you can give to a nephrologist for purpose of dialysis. And a good AV fistula can last for 10-12 years, and it's like lifeline for the patient. Failure of fistula immediately stops his dialysis and leads to problems. So immediate another alternative vascular access has to be there for the patient to continue on dialysis. Now, if you see the magnitude of renal failure problem in our country, it is about 800 per million. And so if you see the magnitude of renal failure problem in India, it's a huge problem, and I think we as plastic surgeons are well trained to do an arteriovenous anastomosis and address this problem and contribute our contribution to the society. The mean age at presentation varies around 50 years of the age, which is much lower in the Western world. And when I started doing AV fistulas way back in 1999, actually, when I qualified MCH, that time we did not knew anything about AV fistula. So it was I started. One of my nephrologist friends called me and said that can you do an AV fistula? So I just said yes to him, and then I went back to the library. Then got books on AV fistula and brachiosemino, how he did the first fistula, all those things we went through, and then we started doing it. It has been a long journey over around 20-25 years. We've done more than about 2000 fistulas now. So I think all plastic surgeons, as we can definitely contribute to this problem, and each and every city will have a lot of patients undergoing hemodialysis and chronic renal failure. So once you have an good rapport with your nephrology colleagues, you will keep on getting a lot of patients for AV fistula. And I always think that once you are in, like, for people like me who are in private practice, we don't do micro. We are not working in one particular institute, so we are not doing microsurgery every day in and out. So it keeps you in touch with microsurgery now and then, so that you're not afraid of doing microvascular flaps whenever you get an opportunity to do so. And so this is one thing I think that junior plastic surgeons should take up, because I'll tell you my experience as I started doing AV fistulas in government medical college, in BJ Medical College, and in private sector. Gradually, the fistulas were haphazardly done either by general surgeons, sometimes by vascular surgeons, sometimes by urologists also used to do fistula those days. I'm talking about 1999 or so. But gradually the work has shifted to plastic surgery, at least in our city, and in BJ Medical College, all the fistulas now come to plastic surgery department, and we are doing at least every OT, we are doing 2-3 AV fistulas now. So everybody should think of this is another arrow in our armamentarium, where we are saying that the others are taking away our work. I think this is one good thing where we can get into this field and start doing AV fistulas. So what are the options for hemodialysis? The best option is AV fistula, as it has got minimal complications, better patency rate as compared to these other options like double lumen catheters, which are kind of temporary access for hemodialysis. Then next option is peritoneal dialysis. You can have arteriovenous grafts and arteriovenous shunts. So creating AV fistula, the goal is to have good primary patency rates, low risk of complications and side effects. It should be durable and allow secondary procedures as well in case of this a particular fistula fails. So if you see, this is a comparative chart of CAPD and hemodialysis, that is a peritoneal dialysis and hemodialysis, which is peritoneal dialysis, of course, is not very popular as hemodialysis. And hemodialysis can be either done through a central venous catheter, that is CVC, or an AV fistula. So if you compare, if you see the advantages of AV fistula, they are it is high patency rates, very durable, very low risk of thrombosis compared especially with CWC catheters. practically no risk of infection because you are not putting any indwelling catheter inside. The disadvantages are there. We will talk about that. Sometimes it takes longer maturation time if the vessel diameters are smaller. If you do a large fistula, it can lead to steel phenomenon because of low oxygen levels in the hand. So it is created with minimum patient morbidity, requires a period of maturation before prior to use. So it is not possible that you create a fistula today and tomorrow itself dialysis will start from it. Conventionally, it takes about at least minimum period of 6 to 8 weeks for the fistula to mature. So you have to plan the fistula early according to the patient needs. So if the patient is, that is the job of nephrologist, the nephrologist will decide that this patient is likely to undergo hemodialysis in near future, then he would refer the patient to for AV fistula creation, so that after fistula creation we get sufficient time for the fistula to mature before it is pricked. Because if the fistula is pricked for hemodialysis or vascular access is taken early before the fistula matures, then the chances of fistula failure or thrombosis are very high. We want the vein to become properly arterialized before you make the first prick for the hemodialysis. Always remember that the size of the fistula, whatever size, 6 millimeters, 7 millimeters, 8 millimeters you create, is going to increase with size as the vascular flow starts through across the fistula. Also, the diameter, along with the diameter of the fistula, the flow also will increase with time. So initially you might have a flow of about 200 or 300 ml per hour, but eventually with a good mature fistula, you can have a flow of up to 600 to 700 ml per hour. And sorry, not ml, liters per hour. It has got obviously less complication rates than AV grafts. I have done only couple of AV grafts in patients where there was no vascular access available at all, because previous 3 or 4 AV fistulas done had not worked. But then chances of AV grafts, thrombosis of AV grafts are very high. So what are the prerequisites for AV fistula creation? One should have a good arterial inflow into the limb, good outflow of the veins, and healthy skin. Because most of these patients, because of uremia, they have itching, and they have sometimes, because of scratches and everything, small ulcers on the skin. So you have to select a site where the skin is healthy. So according to this kidney disease outcome quality initiative, there is a rule of 6 which is associated with maturation of the fistula. Remember that this rule of 6 is not about fistula creation, but it is about maturation of the fistula. So when you say that the fistula is matured, the vein is seen within 0.6 centimeters of skin surface. The basic concept is that it should be easily seen and easy for the technician to prick it. The external diameter of the fistula should be more than 6 millimeters. There should be a relatively straight segment of the easily accessible vein for cannulation, because you need to make 2 pricks, one in the antegrade manner and one in the retrograde manner, one for the outflow of the blood and second prick to return the blood after it passes through the dialyzer machine. I'm going to show a video of that so that you'll get an idea. I would definitely advise everyone to first go into the dialysis unit and see how a fistula is pricked for dialysis, so that once we understand what are their needs, probably we are in a better position to do a good fistula and give them good quality vascular access. The blood flow, the last point in the rule of 6 is the blood flow across the fistula should be 6 ml per minute to support dialysis. So advantages of AV fistula over other methods for vascular access, that it is durable, low rate of thrombosis, no infection, no risk involved, and finally it is safe and cheap in the long run. When I say safe and cheap in the long run, because if you see the Western literature, there are a lot of papers discussing about salvage of AV fistula, where there is early stenosis of the AV fistula by doing interventional radiology, balloon angioplasty. But in our country, the situation as far as the financial needs of the patient is concerned, it's different, because it is costly to do a balloon angioplasty for a narrow AV fistula or to remove or dilate the stenosis. Rather than that, it is cheap to do a new fistula in those cases. So when you decide to do it, again, the National Kidney Foundation has given clinical practice guidelines. They were first given in 2001 and then revised in 2006. Creatine clearance should be 25 ml per minute, serum creatine more than 4. Timing of access, as I said, is should be ideally 6 months before the anticipated dialysis. Now, this becomes very difficult in our country because even if the nephrologist has advised the patient to undergo AV fistula, maybe because of socioeconomic reasons, the patients don't really come for vascular access creation immediately. They will come when the need for dialysis arises. So most of the times, practically, we get patients who are already on dialysis either by central venous catheter or central line in place where or a permacath already inserted and they have already started dialysis, and then they come to us for AV fistula creation. Because the patient has to be advised that even after putting CWC, a central venous catheter can last you for maybe for not more than 1 or 2 months, because there are very high chances that it will get infected. So once it gets infected, the catheter has to come out and then there is no vascular access available. So ideally, if a patient undergoes first dialysis by a central venous catheter, that time itself, on the next day itself, we have to create an arteriovenous fistula, so that by the time the central venous catheter is about to be removed, your fistula is already mature and then patient can start vascular access through the AV fistula. So in 2003, this National Kidney Foundation started a fistula first initiative, where they advise that the goal is to create 50% of the patients requiring dialysis should have AV fistula in place before the dialysis is started. As I said, this is very difficult in our country, but with surveillance program in place in our institutes, we are now in a better position, and we try to do fistulas as early as possible. If you see the literature, the primary failure rate, now here the failure rate is not defined as no bruit or thrill across the anastomosis at end of the fistula. So at the end of the fistula, if you don't have bruit or thrill across the anastomosis, it doesn't mean that it is primary failure. So this is important thing that needs to be understood. What is the primary failure in a AV fistula? It is that fistula is not usable at end of 6 weeks for dialysis. So in 6 weeks time, if the fistula develops and matures, it is not called as primary failure. And if you see the literature has various papers says the primary failure rate is very high. Sometimes some series have reported failure of up to 40%, so 7 to 40%. So that is not, an National Kidney Foundation has clearly said in its guidelines that it should not be considered as a contraindication for creating an vascular access. So especially for our junior colleagues or those who are starting AV fistula surgery soon, this should not be an disheartening thing. I mean, it's even if fistula fails, don't give it up, and as you start doing more and more fistulas, you will be having a better success rate, because there are so many factors in failure of the fistula. It's not only the surgical technique. The patients, more than 50% of the patients are diabetic. They have bad quality vessels. The vessel diameter may be small. Post fistula, patient may not follow your instruction, may not do your exercises and everything. So the fistula may fail to mature properly as it should at end of 6 to 8 weeks. So these are all factors which are involved in primary failure. Now coming to when to do it, whether you should do Doppler ultrasound in all cases. Ideally, yes, you should do Doppler ultrasound in all the cases to assess the size of the artery, size of the veins, the patency, the flow rates, and but in practicality, if you ask me, if you what I follow is if you see a good vein at the wrist, good cephalic vein at the wrist after applying a venous tourniquet, you feel good arterial pulsation, the Allen's test is negative, then I generally don't go in for Doppler ultrasound in all the cases. But slightest doubt, it is better that you do an ultrasound, because that will tell you about arterial diameter, venous diameter, and then you can plan the site of AV fistula where you will be doing the AV fistula properly. Early intervention about in failing fistulas, we have seen that interventional radiology procedures can be done if it is diagnosed early. Sometimes it does happen that patient is taking regular dialysis through the fistula, and suddenly one day post dialysis patient comes to us in OPD saying that the fistula was working, and suddenly it has stopped working. There is no bruit and thrill felt, because we always tell all our patients to feel thrill every day morning and check that the fistula is functioning and report if the thrill disappears immediately. What happens is, during dialysis, sometimes because of hypotension, there is sluggish flow and there is thrombosis of the fistula. So if the patient presents to you early within 6-8 hours of disappearance of bruit and thrill, you will be able to do an embolectomy and remove the clot and salvage that fistula under local anesthesia. Can even be done on daycare basis. But if the patient comes late to you when the clot has already organized, then it becomes really difficult to salvage the fistula, and sometimes the clot may extend along the entire length of the cephalic vein right into the forearm, and then you have no other option but to do a new fistula, maybe at a proximal level or under on the other hand. So an aggressive approach has to be taken when the fistula, if you identify a failing fistula. It is always better to call these patients on regular follow-up at say 3 months or 3 monthly basis, so that you can assess the quality of thrill. If you think that the quality of thrill is going down, or the flow across the fistula is reducing, if your nephrology colleague or technician tells you that initially I used to get 600, 700 flow, now it has come to 400, then you should suspect that there is some problem with the fistula, either an outflow obstruction or a stenosis at the anastomotic site. And then if you identify it early, you'll be able to salvage that fistula. So proper monitoring and surveillance program has to be in place if you want to give sustained dialysis through the vascular access of AV fistula. Now, this is very important that when you start the patient on hemodialysis, elderly patients whose life expectancy is limited are less likely to benefit from AV fistula first approach, which was described by National Kidney Foundation, because by the time you create the fistula and the fistula can be used for vascular access, if you don't expect the patient to live that long, then it is better that patient goes for a temporary vascular access like central venous catheters or a permacath for the time being. So this decision has to be taken actually by the nephrologist. So it is not that every patient with kidney failure, if you get a 85, 87-year-old patient with kidney diagnosed as kidney failure, and if the nephrologist is not very sure about the life expectancy of the patient, then we may not do AV fistula in these patients and try and do alternative methods for vascular access, rather than subjecting patient immediately to AV fistula surgery. So where we do it? Now, the first and foremost important thing, you have to take a detailed history of the patient. Detailed history: when was kidney failure diagnosed? When was his first dialysis done? How was it done? Through the central venous catheter or by permacath insertion? A detailed examination of both the upper limbs has to be done, which is a dominant hand, which is non-dominant hand. Obviously, we prefer non-dominant hand over dominant hand. An ultrasound evaluation, as I said, in all the cases is ideal to access the arterial and the venous diameters. So evaluation in general about whether the patient can lie flat, because these patients are in fluid overload. When you make them flat, they become breathless, and it can cause, because all our fistulas we do under local anesthesia, local infiltration, not even axillary block, because it takes about, for us now, about 15-20 minutes for fistula to be completed. So ability of the patient to lie flat is very important. The best thing is that you should always do a dialysis of that patient previous day and then take up the fistula patient for a fistula creation, because if the patient becomes breathless intraoperatively, you cannot complete the fistula because patient has to be made in on operation table. He has to be in sitting position. So in sitting position, it is not possible to do a fistula surgery. So these things have to be sorted out earlier before you pose the fistula patient for fistula creation. Always assess the cardiac function also, because when you are creating an arteriovenous shunt, it is likely to put load on heart function, and chances of heart failure are high. So patients with already history of heart failure should be cautioned that they might require ICU admission post surgery if the fistula is causing deterioration of cardiac function. And in such cases, obviously, it is we reduce the size of the fistula so that the cardiac overload is reduced. Patients in uremia, sometimes they are in NCAF, where they don't understand our post-operative instructions. We have seen patients with uremic flaps and encephalopathy, where we have postponed the AV fistula, because unless the patient is in his senses, he will not be able to take care of his hand properly or do post-operative exercises that we advise to the patient. And then it will cause a failure of fistula, and then including the nephrologist, everybody is going to blame us that the fistula did not work. So patient selection is very, very important. These patients have a lot of comorbidities like diabetes, vascular disease, patients with collagen vascular disorders like systemic lupus. Chances of thrombosis post-surgery are very high, so they need to be counseled about the same. Sometimes we need to have a prolonged anticoagulation therapy post-surgery. So in clinical evaluation of arterial system, we should have a good strong pulse, a blood pressure differential of less than 20 mm between two arms, and one has to do Allen's test to confirm the patency of the arch. Doppler ultrasound, you have to specifically, we have made a specific format for our ultrasound to be done for AV fistula. What we want from the radiologist. So that printout is given to the patient. We want internal diameters of radial artery, ulnar artery, brachial artery at wrist level, elbow level, the thickness of the wall, arterial flow, current arterial flow, calcifications or any atherosclerotic patches or existing in the artery. And obviously we have to look for arterial anomalies. Similarly, in vein, clinically you have to assess a straight segment of the vein. So side branches of the veins and everything need to be ligated, because having a long, at least 6-7 centimeters of venous segment for them to make two pricks is essential. Compressibility of the vein, distensibility can be tested clinically by applying a venous tourniquet and marking the veins pre-operatively, because that will help you to identify the veins, which one to ligate, which one to keep, and where to do anastomosis. So pre-operative mapping of venous mapping on the limb is very essential. You have to ask for recent pricks or recent IV lines being put on that hand where you are planning to do fistulas. You have to see for any scars, and also ask for any central venous or peripheral catheterizations done on that hand. On Doppler, you have to ask for diameter of the vein, the flow, any evidence of thrombosis or stenosis, and what is the distance between, suppose you are taking cephalic vein and radial artery, what is the distance between cephalic vein and radial artery, so that you'll be able to understand. This is more important when you go in for a proximal fistula at elbow level. If the cephalic vein is too far away from the brachial artery, then you probably need to take a bigger incision to expose the cephalic vein and swing it across the medial side. On clinical examination, if you see a patient like this with dilated veins in the axilla or on the neck or on the chest, then be sure that there is some, definitely requires a Doppler examination, because you might have central venous thrombosis in IJV or subclavian, which is leading to this kind of dilatation of veins. And if this is not accessed or this is not diagnosed earlier, then you might do a fistula at elbow level or a wrist level. And if your vein subclavian is blocked at a higher level, obviously with back pressure, eventually the fistula is not going to function properly. There will be low flow and eventually it will fail. So, because most of the times this is a common cause of failure of AV fistula, that these patients have undergone central venous, vascular access catheterization earlier. IJV line or a subclavian line has already been put for earlier access. And post removal of those line, nobody does venous examination or venous Doppler to confirm that there is no thrombosis, and we just go ahead and do a AV fistula. Eventually, the fistula is going to fail. About the local examination, these are the sites where you can do a fistula, standard fistula, or distal level fistula at the wrist level, where cephalic vein and the radial artery. If you're not sure about the cephalic vein here, or it's already an intracath has been placed here, you can slightly go higher at, say, mid forearm level. And if the vein is good here, and if the thrombosis of the vein, of the cephalic vein, is limited only to the area of intracath which is put there, and if this, the rest of the vein is good, then you can still do it at mid forearm level. You can even do with the ulnar artery, but the problem with the ulnar artery is that the veins on the medial side of the arms are very difficult to access for the technician. So generally we prefer radial artery over ulnar artery. A Grant's fistula has been described, where they can do we do an anastomosis with a communicating vein from the superficial to the deep system directly with the brachial artery. A brachiocephalic or a proximal fistula, where you do cut the cephalic vein here, swing it across and do with the brachial artery. So these are the various sites where AV fistula can be done. Which are the veins that can be used? You can use cephalic vein, you can use a antecubital, median antecubital vein, or a basilic vein. Now, when we come to the proximal AV fistula, about the basilic vein, we will talk more about where to do the fistula and how to do a proximal fistula. So this we have already seen. The third point is important. The arterial lumen should be more than 2 millimeters before you select that particular artery. So if your radial artery is, say, 1.7, 1.8 millimeters on Doppler study, it is better to avoid a fistula at that site and go in for a proximal level fistula, because in our papers that we have published, we have proved a statistical correlation between high failure rate and an arterial lumen less than 2 millimeters. Similarly, for venous requirements, if you see various papers, the luminal diameter has to be 2 to 2.5 millimeters or more. So anything less than 2 millimeter for vein also is a problem. So then you select a bigger vein, or you go at a higher site from wrist to, say, elbow level or mid forearm level to get a better diameter of the vein. There should not be any obstruction to the vein proximal to the site where you are going to do the fistula. So you have to have a straight segment for cannulation. The vein should be superficial. It should not be a deep vein. A deep vein which is deep to fascia is not accessible for dialysis. So when you do a basilic fistula, you have to, especially at the elbow level, that's the reason why this sentence is very important, that the vein should be within 1 centimeter from the skin surface, so that it can be easily pricked. A basilic vein in the arm, as we all know, that it is subfacial. So unless you open up the fascia, make the vein from subfacial to suprafacial or subcutaneous plane, that vein cannot be used for vascular access. And continuity with the proximal central veins is important, as we have already discussed. So what should be our surgical strategy? An elderly patient, more than 65, diabetic, arterial diameter less than 2 millimeters, vein diameter less than 2 millimeters, you don't see good veins, very high risk of primary failure of a radial radiocephalic AV fistula. So then it is, in those cases, it is better primary you go for a proximal site to brachiocephalic level at elbow level, rather than doing an radiocephalic fistula, which might work for a couple of days. There might be good bruit thrill. Eventually, the fistula is going to flow is going to reduce. It is going to stop, and the fistula is going to fail. So primarily, then we choose directly an elbow level site for our vascular anastomosis. If you get patients like this with less than 2 millimeter, they are diabetic, elderly, and the vein quality and arterial quality is not good. Even by doing good palpation of the radial artery, you can clinically assess whether the arterial pulsations are really pounding pulsations, where you think that the diameter and the pressure of the artery is good, or if you see sometimes feel very feeble radial artery, especially in females, then the arterial diameter is obviously less. You can sometimes feel thickened artery, then we are sure that there are a lot of atherosclerotic plaques there. Then it is better that even sometimes an X-ray of the hand can show you that there is calcium deposits everywhere. Then it is better to avoid that artery primarily rather than doing a second fistula after the first fistula fails. So decision making is whether you do a dominant hand or non-dominant hand. We have made these patient information brochures which are given to patients pre-operatively. So we've written everything about it, what is dialysis, why you require dialysis, why you require a fistula, what should be done before fistula, what are the post-operative advice that is given to the patient. So he has to know pre-operatively that post-surgery he has to do these exercises. And accordingly, we select the site of the fistula, whether it is a distal fistula, proximal fistula, whether we are going to do end-to-side anastomosis or whether we are going to do side-to-side anastomosis. And it is our routine strategy. Initially, we used to tell nurses and housemen at the patient counters that don't prick that particular limb for AV fistula, but it does happen that their duties keep on changing. So the best thing that we have realized, you tell the patient that don't make any IV access or don't collect blood from this hand, as this hand is to be preserved for AV fistula creation. And we usually put a small micropore sticking where with a marker we write that do not prick on this hand, so that you preserve that hand for AV fistula creation and those veins are not damaged by multiple pricks. Because these patients undergo ICU admissions repeatedly because of various reasons. And we do get patients. Initially, we used to get a lot of patients where, both side veins are totally thrombosed and you don't have a good vein for vascular anastomosis. So so educating the staff and educating the patient itself is very important if you want a good quality artery and vein for anastomosis. So how do we do it? I think we as plastic surgeons, we do microsurgery routinely. So I will not go into details of how we do end-to-side and side-to-side anastomosis, because that is all we are well versed with the technique of doing anastomosis. We'll just talk about what are the different sites where we do AV fistulas. Radiocephalic or a distal or a wrist fistula is the commonest or the preferred site, followed by brachiocephalic fistula, which is at the elbow level, which is anastomosis of end of the cephalic vein with side of the brachial artery. The third is a brachiobasilic transposition fistula, where you anastomose the basilic vein with the brachial artery, again end to side anastomosis. But the vein has to be transposed anteriorly and it has to be superficialized from subfacial to subcutaneous plane. And the fourth is arteriovenous prosthetic grafts. So this is the sequence as per National Kidney Foundation Disease Outcome Quality Initiative guidelines. We have described a new technique of AV fistula where we do a brachio-antecubital vein fistula or a brachiobasilic fistula at elbow level without doing vein transposition. And how we do it, we will explain as we go forward. So I would put this as the third option before we go in for a brachiobasilic transposition fistula, because there are certain advantages of this fistula over the brachiobasilic transposition fistula. So this is radiocephalic fistula. That's a cephalic vein under radial artery, standard end-to-side anastomosis. It is the easiest to create, first preferred site for vascular access. The superficial radial nerve needs to be identified and preserved. So this is the radial artery and this is cephalic vein. We do it under local anesthesia using 10 cc of 2% xylocaine and S-shape incision. I will show you step-by-step pictures how we do it. Arteriotomy size is 6 to 7 millimeters. And if you're doing a proximal fistula with the brachial artery, then the arteriotomy size has to be slightly less as you go near to the heart. And we use continuous running sutures either with 7-0 polypropylene or 8-0 monofilament nylon, depending upon the vessel wall diameter. And we clip all the side branches near to the anastomotic side branches of the vein, so that you don't get development of accessory veins and distal runoffs across the fistula, and you get a long segment of a 6-7 centimeter long segment of the vein in the forearm, which can be easily accessed for hemodialysis. So these are the steps. This is the radial artery, this is cephalic vein, this is an S-shaped incision mark. Exposure of the radial artery and the cephalic vein. This is cut end of the cephalic vein. The distal end of the cephalic vein is ligated. This is an arteriotomy done. As you can see, artery open here. A vein is open to match the diameter of the arteriotomy. The posterior wall anastomosis complete. 7-0 polypropylene continuous sutures. And we tie a knot at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock position. And this is when an anterior wall of the anastomosis is completed after release of vascular crank. So this is an end to side radiocephalic fistula. Coming to the proximal fistulas, it can be either brachiocephalic fistula or, as I said, brachiobasilic fistula with vein transposition. So what is the basic difference here? You have a brachial artery, you can do an arteriotomy, ligate the cephalic vein here and join the end of the cephalic vein to the brachial artery. So this is a brachiocephalic fistula. Now this is a very easy and simple fistula to do. It is almost same as the radiocephalic fistula. This cephalic vein is very superficial on the anterior aspect of the arm, so can be easily accessed for hemodialysis by the technicians. But if you come to the basilic vein, as we have seen in the anatomical picture there, that the basilic vein in the arm lies under the fascia. So this vein has to be completely, if you see, this is a transposed basilic vein, what is being shown here. So you have to cut the vein here, ligate the vein here, mobilize this entire vein. So you require a long incision on the medial aspect of arm to do that, because the vein has to be completely dissected from under the fascia, transposed anteriorly and put in the subcutaneous plane by suturing the fascia underneath the vein, so that the vein becomes superficialized and is in the subcutaneous plane, and then do an anastomosis with the brachial artery. So this is a brachiobasilic fistula with vein transposition. Now, though this is a tedious procedure, this has got a certain advantage. The cephalic vein system is most likely to be pricked earlier, and if you find on Doppler that the entire cephalic vein system is thrombosed, then you don't have a choice but to go in for this type of fistula. And this basilic vein, by virtue of it being subfacial, is a virgin vein. It is unlikely to be. Hello? 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 Am I audible?
Hello? Yeah, you
Am
are
I?
audible, sir.
Yeah, no,
you are
I
audible.
heard some voice. I thought somebody's asking questions, so I stopped. So
No,
I should continue? I should continue?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So this vein, by its natural location, is a well-preserved vein, and you can definitely use it for a fistula creation in case the cephalic venous system is completely thrombosed.